What if you could see in about 15 minutes whether that you're on track to retire? Not a gut feeling, but an actual probability score. That's what I want to show you today. I'm Van Richards, and I've spent 30 plus years helping people figure out whether that their retirement plan is going to work. And what are the tools that I use with clients and I make available for free on my website is called Dash by Money Guide. Today, I'm going to walk you through it using a real world example. A couple I'll call John and Jane. John is 66, runs his own business, and earns about $120,000 a year. Jane is 56, a public school teacher in Texas, earning $65,000 a year. They own their home outright. They want to retire, John at 76 and Jane at 66, and they want to know the same thing that all of us want to know. Are we going to be okay? By the end of this walkthrough, we're going to watch their probability of success go from a low of 0% all the way up to 88%. And along the way, I'll show you how to use the same tool for yourself. Let's get started.
To find Dash, go to vanrichards.com. Go all the way down to the bottom of the page until you see the page that's in my background. Now you're going to see two buttons. Schedule Now books a consultation with me, but if you want to explore on your own first, which is what most people do, click on Check Your Retirement Score. When you land on this page, Dash is going to ask you for some basic information. Don't worry, nothing is saved unless you create a username and a password. Now, if you want to come back to this page later or any of the other pages and pick up where you left off, then the option that's on the right-hand side, you'll want to create a username and a password. Otherwise, click on Get Started. Over the next couple of screens, you're going to enter your information and notice what Dash is asking for. Name, date of birth, gender, state of residence, employment status, and income. Each one of these really matters. Now, your state affects your taxes and your long-term care cost. Your date of birth, well, that drives your retirement timeline. And your income, it sets the starting point for your retirement spending estimate. For John, we're going to enter in $120,000 for his income. We're going to mark him as a business owner, and we're going to set his state as Texas. When I finish here, I want to click on Co-Client. Then we add Jane, $65,000 in income and employed. When you're done here, click on Plan Summary. Then you'll get to the confidence zone screen. Right now, your probability of success is 0 because there's not enough information about you and your goals. You can stick with your basic information, or you can explore to learn more about each focal point. For example, let's start with when you'd like to retire by looking at the milestone focal point. The gauge starts with your current age. Now, you can enter specific ages, or you can explore this focal point by clicking on the exclamation point. So let's click on the milestone exclamation point and see what's here. The information that you're going to see on the right-hand side of the screen is going to be very useful even before we start entering our own personal data. Dash is showing you key ages that you need to consider. Let's take a look at a few of these. For example, age 50. This is an important age because this is when you can start to do your catch-up contributions for your retirement plans if you want to. Look at age 65. Now, that's another important one. Age 65 is the age to keep in mind because that's when you are eligible for Medicare. And then the last one that I'll bring up is going to be the one that's for age 70, which is the age when you reach maximum Social Security benefits. If you don't know these different ages and what they mean, you're not alone. Take a moment, though, and look over them. Most people don't know this kind of information, but every last one of these can either cost you or save you tens of thousands of dollars, depending on how you handle them. For John and Jane, we're going to set John's retirement age at 76, and we're going to set Jane's at 66. When we're done, we want to click on the blue cross on the right-hand side, and that's going to take us back to the main dashboard. Now let's look at the goals, because fulfilling the goals is really what drives the probability of success gauge. Click on the exclamation point next to goals. When you open goals, you're going to see 4 starter items. The first one, retirement living expenses, is really significant. And I want to spend just a minute on this because this is where most people either overthink it or they underthink it. What Dash is doing is automatically estimating what your annual income will be for your basic expenses when you're retired. For John and Jane, they estimated $76,137, which is about 41% of their combined pre-retirement income. You can change that number, but you can't delete it. It's the foundation that everything sits on. Now, here's a shortcut that I've been recommending to clients that'll help you to get more of an age number for yourself that's focused more on you. If you're not sure what your real numbers are, go to your favorite AI, whether it's going to be Claude, ChatGPT, or whatever else that you're using, and ask it this prompt. What would the basic living expenses average for a retired couple ages 76 and 66 living in Houston, Texas with a pre-retirement income of $120,000 and $65,000 a year? Now, of course, you're going to put in your numbers, your basic information, but what you're going to find is you're going to get a breakdown back to you in about 10 seconds or less. It's going to give you housing, food, utilities, and transportation. It's not a substitute for a real budget, but it's a solid reality check to see how it compares to whatever Dash is estimating for you. One important note. Now, this retirement living expense number does not include health care. That's tracked separately right down below it. And that's intentional because health care in retirement behaves very differently than everything else. If the 4 starter goals don't match your life, then click on Add Goal in the bottom left-hand side of the screen. You're going to see 6 more starter goals. Travel, car, college, major purchase, new home, and other. This is where you can customize Dash to reflect your retirement, not a generic one. When you're done with this page, click on the blue cross on the right-hand side and go to the next screen. Now let's look at the money focal point. This is where we want to take your inventory of your assets. So let's click on the money focal point, exclamation point. The first question that Dash is going to ask you is going to be about Social Security. Who's eligible? You, your spouse, or both? For John and Jane, we are checking John as eligible. But Jane, as a Texas public school teacher, doesn't pay into Social Security. She pays into the Texas Teachers Retirement System, or TRS. That's a detail that most planning tools miss. And it's a matter that is really important. If you're a Texas teacher, a firefighter, a police officer, or anyone else in a non-Social Security position, you have to plan differently. So we're going to leave Jane's Social Security unchecked, and instead we'll add her TRS as a separate line item. To proceed, click on the Add Account at the bottom of the page. Here you'll see 9 account types: employer plans, IRAs, taxable accounts, HSAs, 529s, and so on. For Jane's TRS, we're going to select retirement income. That's the category for pensions and guaranteed income streams. After we've done that is clicked on retirement income, we're going to click on Add Account down below it. If you're like Jane, this is a spot where you're going to have to do just a little bit of homework. Jane needs to log into her TRS employee portal and look up her estimated monthly benefit for her planning retirement age. There's a lot of different options that might be available to her, and it might be available to you too. For her, she could choose to receive a single life income, a joint and survivor income, or something similar. You see, each option pays a little different percentage of her pre-retirement income. The option that she chose affected not just her income, but also affected John's income. Jane had to do something that you might need to do too. Jane had to take into consideration what was going to happen to John's income if she passed away first. If you're married, that's something that you might need to take into consideration too. Again, to go on to the next page and add in this information, click on the Add Accounts. Now pay attention here, because there's a few common mistakes that can really trip you up. When you add retirement income, Dash is going to default the owner to John. But for Jane's TRS, we need to change that. But in this case, we're choosing the joint and survivor option, which means that this pension is going to pay as long as either of them are alive. So to enter a joint income, click on John's name here, and you're going to see 3 options pop up. We'll change the owner field here to joint. Next, another common mistake that we want to talk about is going to be the frequency of income that you'll enter under the amount column. When Jane goes to her TRS portal, it's going to give her a monthly income amount. To make that work in Dash, she needs to multiply that monthly income by 12 and then enter her number under the amount column on this page. Jane's TRS estimate was $2,998 a month as a joint benefit. We multiplied that times 12 to get her annual retirement income of $35,976 per year. We then took that number and entered it under the amount column. And then this is very, very important. You don't see it here where the 3 little dots are, but before we finish this page, we had to click on the green check mark. If we don't do that, the data is not going to be saved. Now let's add John's biggest asset, his traditional IRA. He has about $750,000 in that, and he's contributing the maximum amount to it each year. After adding that, the probability of success gauge is finally moving for the first time up to 55%. Think about that for just a minute. A $750,000 IRA plus a Social Security benefit plus a joint pension for Jane only moved their probability of success to a little bit better than a coin flip. Honestly, that's a lot of people's reality. They think that they have enough money to retire on, but they just don't know until they go through the numbers, like what we're doing here today. But we're just getting started. Go back to the money panel by clicking on the Add Account number here. Jane also has a health savings account through her school district. The current balance is $40,000 a year, and she's putting in $5,400 a year, which is the current maximum that she can put in. That's an important planning point to keep in mind. You see, since John is over 65, he's using Medicare, and you cannot contribute to an HSA for a spouse who is on Medicare. That's important to keep in mind. But nonetheless, HSAs are one of the most underused retirement tools out there because the money goes into it tax-free, it grows tax-free, and it comes out tax-free if it's used for qualified medical expenses. And after the age of 65, you could use it for anything, just like an IRA. Adding the HSA moves their probability of success up to 67%. Now, next up, Jane also has a small Roth IRA. It has a balance of $10,000 into it, and she's putting in $5,000 a year into that. But that moves our probability of success gauge just a little closer to 73%. Let's add one more account. John has a brokerage account that has $75,000 in it, and he puts about $8,000 a year into that. He uses it for buying and selling different stocks that he likes, and he's adding to that on a regular basis. For us to add it into the retirement account, it's going to be added as a taxable option. So to do that, what we want to do is go back and click on the Add Account button and add the taxable option onto that. And now, there it is. We've crossed over into the green confidence zone at 84%, but we're not done yet because we haven't accounted for one of their biggest assets, their home. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, why in the world would you put your home in your retirement plan? That's a good question. And the answer is this: their home is paid off. It's worth about $400,000 a year, and they have an option to access part of the equity through a reverse mortgage if they ever need to. Now, I'm not recommending a reverse mortgage to everybody. That's a separate conversation that you need to have with your advisor. But it's a real option for retirees with paid off homes, and Dash conservatively models this very well. The way that we want to do that in Dash is we go back to the Add Account option. We're going to look for the Investment in Future Cash option, and we're going to set the owner on that as joint, since their home is jointly owned, and the cash that comes out will be joint. And then we're going to enter in $200,000. And then remember, go to the right and click on the green check mark to enter that. Once we've done it, we're going to go back and see what happens. And there it is, 91%. John and Jane are firmly in the blue confidence zone. Now let's minimize this focal point and take a look at the last piece, that is the risk. When you get back to the main dashboard, look in the lower right-hand corner near my face and click on Risk. Before I dive into this page, one thing that I want you to hear clearly: past performance is not a guarantee of future results. What you're about to see is based on historical investment data, and history, it's a guide, not a promise. Now, that said, here's what Dash shows you. There are 3 preset investment allocation models in this software. If you work with an investment advisor who uses this tool professionally, these can be fully customized. But for now, we're looking at the broad strokes. The default setting is set at 38% in stocks. What that does is, or what it did, is it produced a 5.26% annual rate of return. And in a severe recession, like back in 2008 of the Great Recession, what we saw happen was a 10% loss. However, the way that John and Jane's portfolio was designed, their probability of success is still staying at 91%. Now, let's see what happens to the probability of success if we move the allocation to moderate. The moderate allocation has 54% in stocks, and from a historical perspective, that performed at 5.74%. But in a Great Recession scenario, this case would have lost about 21% of its value in its stock portfolio. That's more than double what the conservative loss was. And notice this. The probability of success actually drops down to the green confidence zone at 89%. That's not too bad, but you see, the point is this. A little more risk had the anticipation of a higher potential, but it wasn't enough of a return to offset the bigger losses. And for a retired couple, that's significant. Let's take a look and see what happens with the aggressive allocation model. The aggressive portfolio has 91% in stocks, and it produced a 6.9% average rate of return from a historical perspective. But in the Great Recession scenario, look what happened to the stock allocation. It had a 45% loss. Nearly half of their money that was in stocks was lost. The probability of success is going to drop in this scenario too, down to 86%. This is one of the most important lessons in retirement investing. In your working years, you can afford volatility because you have time to recover. In retirement, you don't. Losses taken while you're withdrawing money can be permanent in a way that can never, ever be made up. Okay. We're finished with the risk zone, but before we leave, we want to click back on the conservative allocation because that's the one that we're going to work with. After that, let's close out by clicking on the blue cross in the upper right-hand corner, and that'll take us back to the dashboard once again. As we return to the main dashboard, you're going to see in this example that John and Jane are returning, as we talked about, back to the conservative allocation that produces the 91% probability of success. Now, I want to show you the feature that I think is genuinely the most useful one and really the most fun part of this entire software. It's called the play zone. So click on launch the play zone and you'll see in the left-hand side, let's click on that and see where it takes us. The play zone lets you ask what if questions in real time. What if I retire earlier? What if you want to spend more? What if you save more? What's going to happen? Every slider that you move shows you the impact instantly. Now let's try changing some situations to see what happens. What if John decides that he wants to retire today instead of waiting until he's 76? To do that, you can either click on the slider or on John's age and change it to 76. Just John retiring takes them from 91% down to 84%. Now, what if Jane retires early too? At 56 instead of 66, that is, that drops them down to 41%. 10 years lost earnings, 10 years extra spending, plus a missed opportunity to let their investments compound. The combination is brutal. This is the kind of conversation I have with clients all the time. Can I retire early? And the answer isn't always no, but the play zone really shows you exactly what the trade-offs can be. Now let's flip this around. What if John and Jane stick with their original retirement ages, but they want to spend a little bit more in retirement? Let's do this. Let's double their travel budget and double their extra spending. Now to do that, The first thing is you want to click on the reset button in the upper middle of the page. Now, this is going to take us back to the 91% number that we've been working with. Then you want to double the extra spending and double the travel. Double the spending to 10,000 and double the travel to 12,000. What you're going to see is what's on the screen right now. That drops their probability down to 83%. Still in their confidence zone, but it's less probability of success. So for this couple, the better question isn't, can we retire earlier, which you saw what the results of that were in the previous screens. The real question is this: can we live better in retirement by working just a little bit longer? And in this case, the answer is yes. That's what the play zone is really for. It takes those abstract questions about your future and it turns them into concrete numbers that you can see and you can kind of feel. To finish, let's close the play zone by clicking on the button in the upper left-hand corner, the return button. But before we finish, I want to give you 3 takeaways from today. Number 1 is this: the number one thing that matters isn't your account balance, it's your probability of success, which is your assets measured against your goals in your timeline and your risk. Number 2, the biggest levers in retirement aren't usually your investment returns. They're when you retire, how much you spend, and how you handle the risk as you age. Dash makes all 3 of these visible. And then number 3, your plan is not set in stone. Play zone exists because real life changes happen, and a good retirement plan bends without breaking. Now let's take one final look at the dashboard. When you go back to where we were, you want to scroll down to the next section, and you're going to see the Insights panel. This is where Dash is showing you other planning areas that Money Guide can help you with through an advisor. Things like emergency funds, long-term care, Social Security claiming strategies, and life insurance. Any one of those topics could be the difference between retirement plans that hold together and ones that don't. And if you'd like help turning your numbers into an actual plan, or if you simply want a second set of eyes on what Dash is telling you, click on the Start Discussion button at the bottom of this page. That message is going to take you straight to me. I'm Van Richards, and thank you for walking through Dash with me today.
Important disclosure information. This publication or presentation is for educational and informational purposes only and should not be considered investment advice. Opinions expressed are as of the date of the publication or presentation. Such views are subject to change. Richards Financial Planning does not guarantee the accuracy or completeness of the data presented herein. Van Richards is a managing member of Richards Financial Planning, LLC. Richards Financial Planning, LLC is registered with the Texas State Board of Securities and governed by that entity and the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. Richards Financial Planning, LLC shall not be responsible for trading decisions, damages, or other losses resulting from or related to the information, data analysis, opinions, or their use. The securities quotes, charts, articles, or other statements regarding the market or additional financial information are obtained from our suppliers' sources, and we believe it to be reliable. However, we do not warrant or guarantee the timeliness or accuracy of this information. Our company, our employees, our information providers, guests, or affiliates are not responsible for damages or liable for any errors or inaccuracies related to this publication or presentation. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. All investments are subject to investment risk, including possible loss of principal. Individuals or other operational entities should consider if an investment or strategy is suitable for them by referencing their financial position, investment objectives, and risk profile before making any investment decision. The views and opinions of guests that may appear or be sourced with this publication or presentation are not necessarily those of Richards Financial Planning, LLC, and affiliates. Richards Financial Planning, LLC, and affiliates are not associated with the guest and their affiliates unless otherwise stated.
Throughout our presentations, we may mention related educational products or services, such as online courses or additional resources. These mentions are intended to provide viewers with optional, in-depth learning opportunities related to the topics discussed. The availability of these products does not affect the objectivity of the information presented, and viewers are under no obligation to purchase any mentioned products or services.